In this video, I describe the generic model that Dynar solves. We will represent our model as a set of nonlinear function f that must be equal to 0. Uh, of course, one can represent any equation in this manner. It is enough to bring the right-hand side of the equation to the left-hand side to get this homogeneous form equal to 0. Now you observe that in each of the equations of the F model will appear a vector of endogenous variable yt, but those variables can also appear in yt plus 1 at the next period or at the previous period. In addition, there are other exogenous variables that we write ut that are also kept in a vector. In the deterministic perfect foresight case, at the beginning of the simulation, we will assume that we know the entire sequence of future value for ut. And given those future value, we then solve for yt. The stochastic case is different. In a given period, the ut, the exogenous variable, are drawn randomly. And if in the next period the same thing happens, of course, yt plus 1 will become random, even from the point of view of the conditional expectation at period t. So, if in period t we do not know exactly the value of ut, it's impossible to solve an equation of this form. The best we can do, and it is at the heart of the rational expectation hypothesis, is to solve the model in such a way that it is the conditional expectation of the equation, of the function rather, that is equal to 0. In both cases, as I already mentioned, y is the vector of endogenous variable and u the vector of exogenous shocks. For a deterministic perfect foresight model, it is possible to compute numerical trajectory for the endogenous variable. We just posit the equation like that and solve at once for all the period. Because we don't know all the future shock, we only know the distribution in the stochastic case, it's not possible to proceed in this manner. For the in a stochastic framework, we need a detour, if you want, and we are going to focus on the decision function. We postulate there exists an unknown function that establish, given the previous state of the system, yt minus 1, and the random shock we observe at the beginning of the period, we are able to set the value for this period, yt. And it must be done, the g function must be such that if we do the same thing in yt plus 1, then the conditional expectation of this expression is indeed equal to 0. For a large class of DSG models, Dynar is going to compute an approximation of this function. For most models, it's impossible to find G by algebraic method. We need to use numerical approximation, which in practice can only be done with a computer. Uh, Among the approximation methods that are at our disposal for medium to large scale model, which is an important part of the model we want to solve with NAR, uh, only local approximation are possible. And the theory of local approximation is described in mathematics by the perturbation method. So in fact, for local approximation, DINAR use a perturbation method. The perturbation approach is the following. If we cannot know the function, we would like to recover a Taylor expansion of the solution function from a Taylor expansion of the original model. You may remember from your analysis classes that a Taylor expansion is an approximation of a function in terms of its successive derivatives. So a Taylor expansion of order 1 will only mobilize first order derivative. Second order, we will add second derivatives, and so on. Uh, the words may be new to you, but in fact, a first order approximation, a first order perturbation is nothing else than the standard solution using linearization. And a first order approximation in terms of the logarithm of the variable of interest provides standard log linearization. So at order 1, DINAR does what is done in the majority of the applied literature on DSG model. We need to be more precise on the assumption of our general stochastic model. So we have this the conditional expectation of the function that is equal to 0. Now we need to make more precise the assumption about the random shock ut. The expectation of ut is equal to 0. That means that we perform a complete split between the deterministic part of the model and the random part. So if you had a constant, you would put it in the deterministic part, so that the random component is always zero mean. We have a vector of shock, so the vector of the shocks may be correlated in a given period, and we have the variance covariance matrix big sigma u. On the other hand, we postulate that those shocks are not correlated across time. So the expectation of u tau prime at a different period are equal to 0 for every time that the two periods t and tau are different. Again, yt is a vector of endogenous variable, and ut of exogenous stochastic shock. We need also to be very clear about the timing assumption. And that means expliciting what we mean when we write the conditional expectation given what we know at period t is equal to 0. Here the main assumption that the random sum ut are observed at the beginning of the period. Of course, all the past UT that don't appear here are known, and the past value of the endogenous variable is known as well. Therefore, the decision affecting the current value of the endogenous variable yt are function of the previous state of the system, yt minus 1, that makes sense, and also of the shock observed at the beginning of the period. So when we write conditional expectation at period t, that means that in our information set, we have the previous state of the system yt minus 1 and the shock of the beginning of the period. Now, when we perform perturbation, it will be useful to consider the stochastic scale variable, which is a new concept that I'm going to introduce uh, now. If you look, given what I just said about the information set used by conditional expectation at period t, ut is known, yt minus 1 is known. And if yt is a deterministic function of yt minus 1 and ut, once we know the function, yt will also uh, be deterministic given the information set. In fact, it is only yt plus 1 that is random from the point of view of the conditional expectation at period t. And it is random because it is affected implicitly by the shock in the following period, ut plus 1. Because in period t plus 1, yt plus 1 will be a function of yt and of ut plus 1. Then we introduce the stochastic scale variable sigma, which is a scalar, and the random vector of auxiliary shocks epsilon t, such that we define ut plus 1 as equal to small sigma epsilon t plus 1. The main interest of the stochastic scale variable is in the Taylor expansion by taking increment on sigma, we will be able to take into account the effect of the uncertainty of the model towards the future. And in particular, if we set small sigma to 0, we can shut down the channel of future uncertainty. The characteristic of the auxiliary shock epsilon t are symmetric to the one for the original shock ut. They are mean zero. They have a variance covariance matrix big sigma epsilon, and they are not correlated across time. And of course, the variance of u is equal to small sigma square variance of epsilon. A few remarks on the generality of this representation. That is a generic case I'm always going to use when I present you later the different algorithm. So to some extent, it's a simplified representation of the model that Diner uses internally. But I believe it is the most efficient for presentation purpose. And I will show you how certain restriction implied by this notation are indeed overcome in the working of Dyna. So you see that in the way we're writing the model, exogenous shocks may appear only at the current period. And that we use only for presentation. And Dynar will introduce auxiliary variable when you have shocks appearing in the future or in the past, so as to bring the working model back to this form. More importantly, that it's a true restriction. There is no deterministic exogenous variable. All exogenous effects are purely random, and again, zero mean. So in such a model, you could not easily introduce forecast, for example, on mortality in an overlapping generation. You cannot, by introduce exogenous effect that would be known in advance. We have an expansion of the model in Dynar that let you take into account a sequence of known shock uh, in the future. But I'm not going to develop the algebra uh, for that case. Of course, in a given model, not all variables are necessarily present with a lead and a lag. So in practice, the size of the vector yt plus 1 that is used in the model, or the size of the vector yt minus 1 which is used in the model, is in general smaller than the vector yt. But it would make the notation much heavier to take that into account. And in general, you can always consider that the three vectors have the same side and you have zero coefficient in front of the variable that do not matter. Uh, I'm always writing the model with leads and lags on one period, but of course, in practice, many models mobilize lags or leads on more than one period. We can always bring back a more general model to this form by adding auxiliary variable. For the past, there is a simple mapping between one variable and the lagged auxiliary variable. For the lead, one has to be more careful not to break Janssen inequality. It's an entire nonlinear block of an equation that must be replaced by an auxiliary variable. Okay, this is the end of the presentation of the general model. And we are going to use this general form in the next videos.